Okay, welcome back to another week in Tehillim. And we find ourselves still in Pei Test number 89, which, as we mentioned in the beginning, is one of the longer ones that we have learned before. And so we're going through bits and pieces, and I would like right now to make a skip to Pasuk Lamed Aleph, which is number 31. And 31 to 38 is like a contained part of the Tehillim. And just to try to pull out some of the messages that are here, that are very relevant and very pertinent as always we see. The verse says like this, Im ya'azu banav Torasi, if my children, Hashem is talking, if my sons, my children will one day forsake my Torah, umishpatai, and my teachings, lo yelechun, they will not walk in. If they will forsake my Torah, and they will not walk in my mishpatai, my ordinances, those laws that we can understand. We know that there's several types of mitzvahs in the Torah. One is called mishpatim, which is this week's parsha coming up. These are the explainable laws that make a lot of sense, even though they make a lot of sense, but there's still many details that HaKadosh Baruch Hu adds. These are many of the laws that we find in this week's parsha, are bein adam lechaveru, between us and our fellow man, how to live in this world properly, how to coexist with other people, even when there are differences between us, even when there is strife that might be there, even when there are damages and the like. But there are mishpatim, there are laws, inalienable rights that or inalienable obligations that everybody has, that we need to follow. Then the next verse, Lamed Beis, Im chukaisa yechalelu. If my chukim, the chukim we know are the unexplainable laws of the Torah. Meaning, even though that we might come up with a reason or an idea, we might find a source somewhere in Chazal or in the Mefarshim of why exactly we do this particular mitzvah, but I can't give you a logical reason behind it. I can't tell you logically why it's going to make you a better person and elevate you. And yet the Torah says there's something called chukim. Chukim are because that you believe in Hashem, and because you are a Makablei Torah, you're one of the people that stood by Har Sinai and received the Torah. So therefore, even when there's mitzvahs that I don't truly understand the reason behind them, I'm still going to keep that mitzvah anyway. For example, let's just say, there's a mitzvah called shatnez, which means that a person may not wear clothing that is made out of wool and linen mixed together. And if you do, you're transgressing an avera of not combining those two materials as one. So, can I give you a logical reason behind it? Can I tell you why it is that if you wore a beautiful suit and the collar was made out of linen and the suit was made out of wool, every step that you're taking or every minute that you have it on, you're transgressing a prohibition? How does it make you a better person? I can't explain that to you. But I'm keeping the mitzvah because in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world, everything does count. And in Hashem's perception of the power of the neshama and what a Jew is able to accomplish, yes, shatnez does make a difference. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, make sure that you're not wearing shatnez. You understand? You don't understand. Even though that there's a Sefer HaChinuch that writes a reason that we could try to understand, but even without that, there are chukim, there are obligations that a person has to keep because I'm doing it because Hashem told me to. I believe in the Ribbono Shel Olam. I know that He knows what is best for me. Every single mitzvah enhances a different aspect of my neshama, of my spiritual life in this world and the world to come. And if Hashem says to do, then that's what I'm going to do. But if the chukim you're going to profane, and my commandments, which also we'll have to see the difference between mishpatim and mitzvahs. Also, the mitzvahs are more of the commands that I could understand as well. Then says the Torah, then I'm going to punish them with the rod, pisham for their sins, ubenegoyim avainam, and their iniquity will come with troubles as well. So this says let's just take these 3 verses right now. Basically, if a person begins to veer off of the pathways of Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he sees the way that they're going in the things that they're doing, it's not something that Hashem takes very kindly. It's painful to the Rebbeinu Shalom to see someone that is rebelling against the Torah in such a way. And as the pasuk is saying, unfortunately, when we step out of line and we veer from the path, there is punishment that is coming. But let's just see some of the words over here in the Mefarshim to understand this better. I'd like to start with Rav Gamliel Rabinovich today, and he says like this: Yesh levayer psukim elu derech remez. Let's explain these verses in a remez, in the way that it's hinting to something very profound. Im ya'azvu banav Torasi, if my children will leave my Torah, uve mishpatai lo yelechon, and they will not walk in the ways of my mishpatim, of my ordinances, my laws. Says Rav Gamliel, techilas nefilasoi shel adami. What is the beginning of the downfall of a person in this world? Where does a person begin to slip at first that's going to take them off the path of Torah the way that they know that they should keep? When that person is not engaged in the study of Torah, and we'll add for our class as well, when they're not engaged in the keeping of the mitzvahs of the Torah. If a person is not engaged in the study, in the understanding, in the keeping of the mitzvahs, then certainly, if you're not learning and you're not studying, you're not trying to understand, you are not going to be walking in the way of Torah either. And since that is true, you come to a very low level, which is if you desecrate my chukim, those that we cannot understand, and the mitzvahs you do not guard, you'll end up transgressing all the mitzvahs in the Torah. Says Rav Gamliel, there's a very simple equation over here that Dovid HaMelech is speaking about. And it goes like this. If a person is a believer in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they believe in his Torah, and they believe in his mitzvahs, and they learn, and they study, they try to understand, and they're walking in that path, so then everything is going to be great. Now, you might stumble once in a while, you might fall down, you might, like when you ride the bike, so you fall down, you get back up. That's how it works. I'm not going to be perfect. Hashem understands that. I'm going to make mistakes. Hashem understands that. I will fall, I'll get back up, I'll try again, I might fail again, but the main thing is, I'm trying to stay on the derech, on the path that is the pathway of Torah and the pathway of mitzvahs. But if I get to a place where I'm no longer engaging in the study or the understanding of what Torah is all about, if I'm turning away from my connection to the Torah, what is going to happen? Then I will end up not, as it says over here in the verse, I will end up leaving the Torah, and I will end up even leaving the mishpatim, which are the basic, obvious things that a person should do, and that will carry me then to the chukim, the ones that I don't really understand so well, and even the mitzvahs, which is the mitzvah just to fill up my life and my day with observance, even that I'm going to end up veering from the path. And therefore, we learn how much a person must be careful in the learning of Torah, because it all starts with the learning. Klal Yisrael came to Har Sinai, and they were offered the Torah, and they said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do, and then we will hear. Which means we don't have time right now to absorb all of the Torah that you want us to be able to learn, Hashem. But let us just accept it upon ourselves. We're going to learn that Torah. We're going to keep the Torah, and we will continue learning it every single day of our life, so we will know exactly what it is that Hashem wants us to do. Many times people become Balei Tshuva, they commit themselves, they live their whole life secular, And then at the age of 20 or 25 or 30 or 35, they say, you know what? This stuff makes a lot of sense. Let me become religious. But they don't know how to keep Shabbos. They don't know how to keep kashrus. They don't know how to daven. They don't know how to read Hebrew. They don't know so many things. So what are they supposed to do? So we have to be like that Nasiv and Nishma Jew. We have to say, you know what, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can. Whatever I understand, that's what I'm going to do right now. My rabbi will teach me this, the Rebbe will teach me this friend will teach me this. I'll do what I can. I don't know everything. But Nishma, I'm going to continue learning so that I understand deeper and deeper and deeper why it is that I'm doing the things that I'm doing and what exactly it is that I'm doing. Sometimes you go to a shir and you get so inspired by what they're talking about. Let's say they're talking about Lashon Hara. Not to speak Lashon Hara, but not to speak Lashon Hara. And you walk out of there, your goosebumps all over, your hair standing on end, you heard these frightening stories and you heard about the people that don't speak Lashon Hara, all the brachas they get in their life, and you say, you know what, that's it. I'm never speaking Lashon Hara again. But you never learned the laws of Lashon Hara. So now you come home and you sit down with your spouse and you start talking about something that happened that day, and the next thing you know, Lashon Hara is rolling off your lips. You said you'll never speak him. You just don't know the halachas. You don't know the laws. You don't know the parameters of what Lashon Hara is all about. So Naaseh v'nishma, I will do HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I believe in you. I see the Torah is real. I understand what it means to be, the best of my ability right now, at this point, what it means to be a Jew. I want to do, but I don't know. So Hashem says, don't worry, you don't know. Nobody knows everything. Just be nishma. Just commit yourself to continue learning and studying and understanding what it says in the Torah. Says Rav Gamliel, if a person stops the nishma, they stop the understanding and the learning and the delving deeper into the Torah, the nasa, the doing and the performing of the mitzvahs, that is going to end as well. And the first path, the first step of slipping in our avodas Hashem is when I stop caring so much or paying so much attention to what the Torah has to say and trying to understand it deeper. So there's always twofold that is going on. I have to do, because the person who does, this world was not made for only machshavas, only thoughts. It wasn't made for talking. The world is called the Olam HaAsiyah. This is the world of doing. This is the world where we perform, where we engage ourselves in all these amazing activities that Hashem has given us in Torah. That's the world that we live in. At the same time, the less that I know, the less I can do. The more I know, the more I can do. And so we commit ourselves to doing and also to trying hard as we possibly can to keep learning more and more and more so that we will be able to do the right things in the realm of Avodas Hashem, in the performance of our mitzvahs. So this is really, it's reminiscent of the famous words of Chazal, that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu was coming to destroy the second Beis HaMikdash, one of the downfalls of the Jewish people in the times of the second Beis HaMikdash was that they were not, it says over there, the Lo Baruchu b'Torah Tehillim, they did not make a blessing on the Torah before they went to learn it. We have a special halacha that just like you cannot partake of food before you make a bracha on it, otherwise it's tantamount to stealing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So too, when it comes to learning Torah, when it comes to learning the Torah of Hashem, unless you make a bracha on the Torah, so then it's almost like you're stealing the Torah from Hashem as well. So there's a mitzvah in the morning when a person wakes up, that one of the things that we say in our morning blessings is Birchas HaTorah, the blessings on the Torah, so that we should be able to engage in thinking and talking and the study of the Torah. In that time of the Beis HaMikdash, so the Gemara says a very puzzling thing, that Lo Baruchu b'Torah Tehillim, they did not make a bracha on the Torah in the beginning, which means they didn't make Birchas HaTorah, they didn't make a blessing. So the Ran over there in the Gemara explains, it doesn't mean that they didn't make a blessing. Of course, we're talking about Yerushalayim HaKodesh, we're talking about Tzadikim, Talmidei Chachamim. Of course they were saying brachas, but When they said the bracha, they didn't know, they didn't appreciate what it was they were saying a blessing on. They didn't realize that the Torah it overwhelms every aspect of a person's life, that every little detail in a person's life from the time they wake up in the morning till they go to sleep, it's all governed by what it says in the Torah. And that the Torah is enhancing and filling us up and making us greater, spiritually connected to Hashem. It changes our relationships, it changes our relationship with ourselves, with our spouses, with our children, with everybody. Torah changes us. And they didn't seem to understand that. So when they made a bracha in the morning on the Torah, they didn't have the intention of how great Torah is and what it's going to transform them for that up and coming day. Says Chazal over there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to the Jewish people, and that ended up bringing them away. They ended up struggling and straying off the path, and the next thing you know comes along the Babylonians, Bavel, and they end up sending us into an exile of 70 years. Says the Midrash over there, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Klal Yisrael, Halavai oisi oizvi, I wish that you would just leave me, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Leave me, abandon me, no problem. However, but you should guard my Torah, you should learn my Torah, understand what my Torah is all about. Because the light that is in the Torah, machzir and lemutav, it will bring them back to the side of good. The Torah is so powerful. And there's so much kedusha, and there's so much light that is in the Torah. There's so much ruchniya spirituality, and so much spiritual connection that a person can make between themselves and Hashem, that I wish, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just abandon me. You don't want to believe in me, you don't want to follow me, fine. But at least learn my Torah. And if you'll learn my Torah, you'll understand my Torah, there's so much kedusha radiating from the Torah, it will bring you back to the side of good. It will bring you back to me eventually. Says Rav Gamliel, that is what is going on over here. That im ya'azvu banav Torasi, if my children abandon my Torah, it's all downhill from there. If they abandon the learning, they abandon the understanding, and they just don't understand why they're doing what they're doing, because they're not learning enough to really get to the point of pure das, of wisdom and the like. So then the next step that they take is beginning to slip off the derech Rachmana litzlan. That all being said, he does give us a ray of hope, because it's not always easy to learn. It's not always easy to believe in the eternality of Torah, even though that this is really something that we spoke about on Shabbos. There's a fascinating chazal that tells us that when Moshe Rabbeinu brought Klal Yisrael to Har Sinai, Likrais Hashem, they came to greet HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and they were standing, as it says in the verse, Tachtis Hahar, they were standing by the foot of the mountain. Now Chazal are bothered by these words, Tachtis Hahar, by the foot of the mountain, as we're translating it, because Tachtis is from the language of Tachat, which means underneath. So really the verse means that when Moshe Rabbeinu brought the Jews to come and greet Hashem at Har Sinai to receive the Torah, they were standing under the mountain. How could a person be standing under a mountain? You can stand at the foot of the mountain, you can stand on top of the mountain, you can stand around the mountain, but how could a person stand under the mountain? The mountain is in its place. And therefore Chazal teach us famously that Nidlosh Har Kigigis, HaKadosh Baruch Hu lifted up the mountain like a barrel, v'kaf aleim, and he hung the mountain over our heads, and he told them, Im tikablu es Torah, if you accept the Torah, mutav, gevaldik is going to be amazing, you're going to have brachas and a good life and simcha, and everything's going to be amazing. Imla, but if you don't accept the Torah, Shabbat Karascham, over there, the mountain is going to drop on your heads, and that will be the end of the Jewish people. So Hashem lifted up the mountain, and he hung it over our heads, and he threatened us into accepting the Torah in our lives. Doesn't sound very nice. It sounds pretty harsh, and it doesn't sound very fair either. Because if I want to keep the Torah, We live in a world of bechira, free will. I should have a choice of whether or not I want to keep the Torah. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu is forcing me into keeping the Torah, then I should always have a complaint, and I should always have a claim to Hashem later on down the road. Wow, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you forced me. It's not my fault. If I didn't keep Shabbos the right way, if I didn't eat the right food, if I didn't say a bracha, if I didn't daven, it's not my fault. You forced me into this. I don't want to live something that I'm forced into. But the Mefarshim ask a better question. And that is, we know that Klal Yisrael already said at this point, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do and we will hear. And when the angels in Shemayim heard the Jewish people down here in this world, flesh and blood, say, Na'aseh v'nishma, the angels cried out, who taught them the secret of the angels? Malachim, angels in Shemayim, they are created to do the will of Hashem. They don't ask any questions. Hashem says, I want you to go here and destroy Sodom. They go. I want you to go and heal Avraham Avinu. They go. I want you to go and bring Parnas to this person. They go like that. No questions asked. They see Klal Yisrael down here in this world, people that have bodies, flesh and blood, they're still struggling from leaving the impurities of Egypt, and they said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we'll figure it out later. They're like angels in this world. How'd they learn such a secret? That means that the whole schus, the merit that Klal Yisrael had to receive the Torah, is because we catapulted to a level of angels who said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we want the Torah. No questions asked. So if there's no questions asked, why then is Hashem lifting up the mountain, hanging it over our heads, and threatening us, either you accept the Torah, or if you don't, I drop it on you. What do you mean if I don't? I already said I want it. I already said I'm ready to accept it. What is Hashem doing? So the Maharal answers over there the following idea. And he says, let's think about Klal Yisrael at this moment. We're talking about a nation that's on top of the world. They just went through an entire year of makos, of plagues in Mitzrayim. Hashem made nisim and niflais, signs and wonders and miracles like no other nation ever saw before. And He destroyed the Egyptians and He elevated their levels of emunah. And then they came to the sea, the Yam Suf, and He split the sea for them. A miracle that was on such outstanding levels. Nobody ever experienced a miracle like that before. The nation of Amalek comes and fights against them. They look at the hands of Moshe Rabbeinu. They think about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They daven to Hashem. He wipes the enemy away from us. They're on the 49th level of tomb of impurity, coming out of Mitzrayim, and now they go 49 levels of Kedusha. They raise up all the way to the top that they're ready to become prophets like Moshe Rabbeinu and receive the Torah with the voice of Hashem Himself. And Hashem says, you want my Torah? Of course. Who would be foolish not to say it? We're on top of the world right now. Of course we want your Torah, Hashem. Hashem says, but one thing. What's going to happen down the road when you're not the invincible, miraculous, miracle nation, Klal Yisrael, that you are right now? What's going to happen when you come into Eretz Yisrael, you build the Beis HaMikdash, and sometime after the building of the Beis HaMikdash, suddenly the enemy will come in and is going to destroy you and burn the Beis HaMikdash down to the ground and send you into exile? What's going to be then? Will you want the Torah at that point? What's going to be when there's going to be an inquisition in Spain in 1492, and there's going to be slaughtering of thousands and tens of thousands of Jews in the streets, and they're going to exile you out of the country, or they're going to convert you against your will to become a Christian? What's going to be then when you want the Torah? And when there's pogroms and Cossacks and crusades and a Holocaust, we're literally going to watch your children be burned up in the gas chamber. You want to be a Jew? You want the Torah then? HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I know you Jewish people. Right now everything is great. Of course when it's good, everybody wants the Torah. Everybody wants to be a member of the nation. What's going to be when it's tough? What's going to be when it's hard? What's going to be when things are not going your way? And there's tragedy and destruction and hardships and pain and suffering. You know what I'm afraid of, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu? At that time, you're going to come to me and you're going to say, remember Har Sinai? We took the Torah upon ourselves willingly. We accepted it, Na'aseh v'nishma. We wanted it then. It was great to be a Jew. But you know what? It's pretty hard to be a Jew right now. Pretty difficult, pretty painful, not so glorious to be a member of our nation. And it's all because we have this Torah. So you know what, Hashem? Take the Torah back. Go find another nation. We don't want it anymore. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Klal Yisrael at Har Sinai, I want you to understand something fundamental in the Torah. The Torah is not your choice. The Torah is a necessity. Just like a person cannot live without oxygen, just like a person cannot live without water or food and for a certain amount of days, just like a person cannot survive if their body doesn't have everything that it needs to be able to live and to breathe and to function in this world, you should know that the Torah is the oxygen of the neshama of every single Jew. And if that Yiddish neshama doesn't have Torah, it is living a life without oxygen, and then it's not a life at all. They might look like they're alive. They might be making lots of money. They might have a great grand life. They might be somewhere in Tahiti with the sand running between their toes and a margarita in hand. It looks amazing. But you should know, if there's no Torah, there's really no life. And therefore, I need to teach you this important lesson, says Hashem, that as much as you want Nasiv and Ishma, you want the Torah in your life. I'm very proud of you. And the truth of the matter is, if Klal Yisrael would not have showed Hashem emphatically how badly they want the Torah, they would not have been zeicha, they would not have merited for him to hang the mountain over their head. But because he saw how badly they wanted, he lifted up the mountain and said, but there's one extra level. And that is, in every generation, in every situation, no matter what you're going through, you must know the Torah is an obligation that is necessary for every single one of us. And the moment that you throw off the yoke of the Torah, that is really the beginning of the end of that person, of that nation. The exile will get worse and worse and worse, and will be more and more detached from the Ribbono Shel Olam. So then he hung the mountain, and they realized it's not only our choice. It is a necessity so that we can have the breath of life, of Yiddishkeit, of Torah, and of mitzvahs. Says Rav Gamliel Rabinovich over here, this idea that if you veer from the path of the Torah, from the learning, from the understanding of acquiring what it means, so then you're just going to start sliding off and off and off and off. And then sometimes it's hard for a person to see, how am I going to get back to where I once was? But he gives us a saving grace in the next explanation of these verses, because it says in Lamed Gimel, Ufekadeti b'shevet pisham, ubenegoyim avaynam, I am going to punish them. V'chazdi, but my kindness, le'ofer, I will not cause my kindness to depart me'imay from him. V'le'ashaker b'emunasi, and I will not be false to my emunah, to my faithfulness, or as we'll see, amunah, faith in Hashem. Listen what he writes over here. And he says like this, even if a person doesn't go in the pathway of Torah and of mitzvahs, they're not whatever, they're in a rut, they're going through a hard time, things are not what they thought it was cracked up to be, they have difficulties and challenges in their life, and therefore it's just hard right now. And really, according to their actions, they are deserving of suffering and of pain. Chas v'shalom, God forbid, from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person begins to slip from the derech, when a person begins to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when they begin to do these things, really what should come? Hashem has to punish such a person. It's like when a child misbehaves. We can't just let the child misbehave and get away with whatever they want. If they do with no discipline at all, it's dangerous for the child. They become what we call in Yiddish, a wild animal. with just being able to do whatever they want. So when a child misbehaves, when they step out of line, when they don't follow the laws, when they don't comply with basic, fundamental truths that take place in our home, in the schoolroom, in the classroom, so then they have to get punished. They have to get disciplined. So if a person slips, and a person rebels, and a person's not learning, and they're not keeping mitzvahs, so actually, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they deserve to get some kind of punishment. Mikol Makom, nevertheless, but if that same person who is rebelling against Hashem and His mitzvahs, if that person is saying, I'm not going to keep this, I'm not going to keep that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but they still believe and they trust in Hashem. It's almost comical. The person is putting the tray food into their mouths, but they say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I believe in you. The person is turning on the light switch on Shabbos, but Hashem, don't worry, I still believe in you. So if that person shows that they believe in Hashem and they trust in Hashem, Yiskayim boy, then the next part of the verse will be by them. I will not abandon them. My chesed, my kindness will not abandon them. Hashem Yisbarach einoi mevantel es chazdei mimenu lefi medregosai. Even though that the person has gotten so low, they're not keeping mitzvahs the way they should, but they have a emunah, they believe in Hashem. Hashem says, you know what? I cannot allow my chesed, my kindness, and my mercy to abandon you. And the whole situation of your mood is what's causing this. I cannot falsify my emunah. Hashem promised those people that have emunah in Him, I'm always going to be there for you. You believe in me? You trust in me? You're not the most religious person in the world right now? You're rebelling against me? But you believe in me? Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Really? You trust in me? If that is the case, Rav Shimon Russell tells over a Maisa that there was a boy from a Hasidic family somewhere in New York, and he went completely off the derech, totally off the path of Yiddishkeit. He was not keeping Shabbos, eating treif, you name it. We'll hear from the story what he was doing. He was totally gone. There was one Yid, one Hasidic Yid that kept in contact with this poor boy. Shmuel, it was his name. And he kept in touch with him, and he saw the boy was going down and down and down and down and down and down. And he convinced him to go and see. Rav Shimon Russell was at that time living in Lakewood, tremendous therapist, and understanding a person of the boys and girls that are struggling in Yiddishkeit. And so he convinced his boy Shmuel to go and meet Dr., what he called him, Dr. Shimon Russell, and the boy came. Now at this time, the boy was sleeping in the New York subway system. He hadn't had a shower or anything in who knows how long. His hair was like this. He had tattoos. He showed up with a double chain with 2 crosses on his neck. Okay? Totally gone from Yiddishkeit. He knocks on the door, and Dr. Shimon Russell, who happens to be a rabbi as well, answers it, and he's a very frum person. And he looks at the door and he sees this picture of the man who's supposed to be this off-the-derech kid from the Hasidic family. He looks like a horror story. So the boy's looking at Rabbi Russell like, I didn't come here to see a frum person. And Rabbi Russell's looking at him like, is this person, this is the guy? And so he says to him, are you Shmuel? And he says, ja, in Yiddish, ich bin Shmuel, I am Shmuel. And he says, are you Dr. Russell? Because Russell doesn't have to be such a religious, Jewish name. Are you Dr.? He says, yes, I'm Dr. Russell. He's like, wow, this is not what I bargained for, not what I'm looking for. So Rabbi said, look, your friend already paid for the meeting, for the session. He says, you're already here. He says, why don't you just come in one time? 45 minutes, we'll meet for 45 minutes. Afterwards, you don't like it, you don't want to come back, never come back again. And Rabbi said, your friend already paid for it, why don't you just come in? Okay. So they sit down and they start talking. The boy's got tattoos, cross around his neck, hair like this. Doesn't look anything to do with religion. And as they're talking, Rabbi Russell's listening very attentively to everything that this young man says. So he tells me, he says, Shmuel, I see that you are a struggling, religious young man. So he says, religious? Are you kidding me? He says, do you see me? I have tattoos. I eat chazer on Yom Kippur. I'm mechal Shabbos every single week. I don't keep any mitzvah. I put on tefillin already, and who knows how long. Nothing. You're calling me a struggling, religious young man? Frum? Me? Are you kidding me? So he says, tell me something, Shmuel. He says, the mitzvah of Lashon Hara. You believe in that mitzvah? He said, ooh, he says, Rabbi Russell, Lashon Hara, it's what ruined my life. This one told Lashon Hara about me, and then another one told Lashon Hara about me, and another one. And the next thing I know, I got in trouble with my menayel, and then with my parents, and then with this. And here I am, 3 years later, look at me. It's all because people aren't careful with the mitzvah of Lashon Hara. He said, I told you, you're a struggling, frum young man. You just didn't find your connection yet with the Torah. They spoke for about an hour that day. And Shmuel said, can I come back? He said, of course. He came back again and again and again and again. And before you know it, Rabbi Rosa said, you know what, Shmuel? I think you owe it to yourself to explore your Yiddishkeit. I want you to go to a yeshiva in Israel called Esha Torah. They have classes, philosophy, Gemara, Chumash. I want you to go explore your Yiddishkeit. See if you can figure out what it means to be a religious Jew. And the boy went, and he did tshuva, and he became religious, and today he's living a beautiful, frum life. Says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you believe in me, says Hashem, if you hold on to that emunah and that bitachon, I made a promise, I'm not going to abandon you. You didn't abandon me, I'm not going to abandon you. And even the punishments that perhaps I should bring you, because you're deserving of it, you did the wrong thing, I can't control my chesed and my mercy, I'm going to absolve you from the punishments that should come. Ki yadua shebekayach ha'amuna bitachon, with the power of amuna bitachon, belief and reliance and trust in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, yuchal ha'adam lizchais l'rachim v'chasadim, a person can merit chesed, kindness, and rachamim, and the mercy from Hashem. K'mosh mitzin v'midrash, we find a midrash that spells it out clearly. The midrash says, afilu rasha, even if a person is a rasha, wicked person, ubotech b'Hashem, but they trust and they rely on Hashem, chesed yisevavenu, Hashem's kindness is going to encircle them and surround them. Even if a person is a rasha, they're doing the worst things, but they still believe in Hashem, like the Gemara tells us, even a ganav, a thief, who's about to break into the house in the middle of the night so that nobody should see him, but he offers up a prayer to Hashem, please Hashem, help me to rob and loot the house and get everything that I want. Even a ganav, even a thief can call out and pray to Hashem. And if a person is truly a maimin, a believer in the Ribbono Shel Olam, so that person, he's still going to have the chesed and the rachamim and the mercy from the Ribbono Shel Olam. There is such a story of a person who he came running to the hospital one day with a little baby infant in his arms. And he comes and he says, I found this child in the back seat of a car. The doors were locked, and the baby, who knows how long they've been there, the baby was passed out. They bring the baby into the hospital, and the emergency team starts working on it, and they get a pulse, and they get life, and they get a breath. And miraculously, this baby that who knows how long they were in the back seat of that car, passed out, who knows, not breathing, comes back to life. They immediately find out who the baby is. They call the parents. The parents come running to the hospital, screeching and screaming. They can't believe what's going on. And they find out that, lo and behold, somebody found the baby, brought him to the emergency room, and the baby, Baruch Hashem, is fine. And they're looking around, who is this person? Who is this person that saved a life? So they point to this man who's sitting in the waiting room. That's him. Now, how did this man find the baby? This man is a car thief. And he steals cars in Bnei Brak. And he was going around stealing cars, and he finds this particular car, and as he's jimming the lock in this car, he looks and he sees in the back seat, he sees the child. And he immediately jump starts the car, and he drives to the hospital, and he delivers the baby to the emergency room, and the baby's life is saved. So now this family has no idea that this man is a car thief and was trying to steal their car. But they find and say, oh, you saved our baby's life, you saved him, we owe you everything. And they start lauding with praises and everything, and the man's starting to feel very guilty. I'm a ganav, I'm a thief. Happens to be, I was stealing the car that had your son in there. He doesn't say anything to them, but he feels very, very guilty. And they say, no, you're a tzaddik, you're unbelievable, you're amazing. You must come to us for Shabbos. We're going to make a Sudas Haidah, a meal of celebration this week. We're going to celebrate with the whole community that our child is alive. And you're the star of the show. You got to come. No, I don't need to come. No, you have to come. You saved his life. Anyway, he decides to come. And he comes to the Shabbos, and when he walks in, the whole family's singing and dancing, and they're telling him, you're the greatest tzaddik in the world, you saved our son's life, you have no idea. And in shul, the father brings him to shul, he introduces everyone, this is the man who saved my son's life. And they come to Kiddush the next day, they make a whole Kiddush in honor of the miraculous salvation of their child. And this man, let's call him Yankel, he is the star of the show, and everyone's coming to go, wow, you're a tzaddik, you're amazing, you saved a life. You know, anyone who saves a life, he saves the whole world, you're incredible. And every praise that he gets and every accolade that he receives, he's feeling more and more guilty. I'm a ganav, I'm a thief. I've been stealing cars for years, and I went to steal this car, and now it turns out I saved somebody's life. I'm not a tzaddik, I'm a rasha. In the afternoon, the father says to Yankel, he says, listen, I have a very chashuv Rebbe. He's really a tzaddik. I want to bring you to him. I want you to get a bracha from him. You saved our child's life. You deserve all the blessings in the world. Please come with me. I want you to be my Rabbi. I want you to get a blessing. No, I don't really. Please, it will mean so much to me, and you're going to see he's going to receive you with such warmth. You'll never get such a blessing like this in your life. So sure enough, they go to the Rebbe, and he meets him. He greets him. Whoa, wow, the man who saved a life. And Yankel says, Rebbe, could I speak to you privately? So he says, yes, of course. And he asks his student, the father, you can leave, I'll speak to him privately. And he says, Yankel, what is it? He says, I'm not a tzaddik like everybody says. I'm a rasha. I'm a wicked person. I'm a thief. I'm a ganav. I go around for years stealing people's cars. I steal one car after the other, then I take the car, then I go and I sell it, and I make money. That's how I make my money. And I do it in Bnei Brak, of all places, the most religious neighborhood. And now because I saved this child's life, everyone's telling me that I'm a tzaddik. I'm not a tzaddik. And the Rebbe looks at him, he says, you know what? I'm much older than you. I've done a lot more mitzvahs than you in my life. But I've never been zeicha, I never merited to have the mitzvah of saving somebody's life. You must have some special merit in your life that you've been given this schus, this opportunity to save the life of this child. He says, what have you done in your life that is so special, that has given you this schus? He's like, schus me. Rabbi, I'm telling you, I'm a rasha, I'm a wicked person, I'm a ganav, I make my living stealing people's cars, innocent people, I sell them, I make them, I don't do anything good, I don't do anything. Says, come on, Yankel, think. There must be something that you do that you know is valuable in the eyes of Hashem, which He gave you this merit. He starts thinking. And he says, you know what, Rebbe, there's one thing maybe I could think of. He says, when I break into a car to steal it, the first thing I do is I open up the glove compartment and I look at the insurance policy of this person. There's all different types of levels of insurance. Full coverage means if I steal the car and I sell it and it will never return again, the insurance is going to buy that person a new car. But there's also something called partial policies. And it means that it's only for like collision. If the car gets in an accident, they're going to help to cover the cost of the accident. But if the car gets stolen, then that person is going to be out of a car and he's not going to get reimbursed by the insurance company and he doesn't have money for that. So you know what I do? Whenever I steal the car, I always look at the insurance policy. If I see it's full coverage, I'll steal the car because I know they're going to get it back. But if it's only a partial coverage, I close the glove compartment, I close the door of the car, and I move on to the next one. That's all that I can think maybe I do. Says the Rebbe, so you are a tzaddik. You are a tzaddik. You see that even when you're stealing. What are you thinking about the person you're stealing from? Are they going to get hurt by this or not? If they're not going to get hurt, you take it. But if they are going to get hurt, you're such a tzaddik, you care about them. Then you don't take the car from them. And that's why you merited to be able to have the schus to save this young boy's life. You are a tzaddik. Says Rav Gamliel Rabanovich over here, okay, so you're having a rough day, you're having a rough week, a rough month, a rough year, mitzvahs are difficult sometimes, Torah adhering, it's hard. Well, you still believe in me, says Hashem. You have emunah and mitachin in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You believe in me, you turn to me, you talk to me. Then, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're still a tzaddik. And even if you didn't keep mitzvahs the best way today, I'm going to push off whatever yisurim, whatever suffering, whatever pain, whatever punishments to come. I'll push it away. And I'm going to bring you only bracha and good things. Why? Because anyone that believes in me, says Hashem, I can't turn my back on them. If you don't turn your back on me, I'm not going to turn away from you. And this is the beautiful messages of Dovid HaMelech, how Kadosh Baruch Hu is promising for all generations that those who will end up being faithful to Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will continue to be faithful to them as well. Let me just read you this one last pasuk over here, because it's all along these lines. And that is, if a person does do the wrong thing, I will punish them with the staff. And if they did certain amount of sins, then there's going to be like negoyim, there will be blemishes and the like, lesions, however you want to call it, that are going to come to them. Says Rav Gamliel Rabanovich the following idea: Al yidei hayisurim. And then again, and the next pasuk says, "V'chazdi lo ofir mi imay," and my chesed I will not take away from him. V'lo yashaka b'menaseh, I will not lie about my emunah. And he writes of Gamliel the following: Al yidei yisurim yavin adam v'mat pesha. If a person has yisurim, they have suffering in life. So through that suffering, they'll understand what it is that they did wrong. Because of whatever it is that I did wrong, my sins, that's why the suffering has come. Through the sufferings, a person could come to recognize what his sin might have been. Now that's why he's getting these negoyim, that's why he's receiving over here these troubles. However, he writes, the foundational idea that is being spoken about over here is, if in fact a person does get some kind of troubles in their life, and some kind of difficulties or suffering, it's measure for measure. Like it says in Chazal, it says in the verse, Ein Yisurim b'lei avon, a person doesn't get any suffering without sin. It says it on this verse, which means if a person sees himself going through difficulties, it's because they must have done something that is wrong. If that's the case, he now understands what he did. The suffering that one must endure is actually for their benefit. Because it reveals the sins, and now I know what to correct. My chesed I will not take away. If Hashem ends up doing troubles for a person, so zeu chesed gadol, it's really an act of kindness. Through his Yisurim, he is able to see what it is that he did wrong. And through that, he awakens himself to do the ultimate act of tshuva. So on one hand, Rav Gamliel is saying that in Hashem's chesed, in his kindness, he will not abandon a person, and he will not leave a person, even if we're doing the wrong things, and he will, in the schus of our emunah, of our belief in Hashem, and our bitachon, our trust in Hashem, he's going to protect us and he's going to guard us. But even that being the case, if a person would receive Yisurim, they would receive difficulties, challenges, struggles, hardships, pain, and the like in their life, they should say, you know what, why is Hashem doing that to me? Hashem doesn't act coincidentally. It must be that it's mida keneged mida, measure for measure. I must have done something that deserves this. Let me examine my ways. Let me look at what I've done wrong over here. And in that way, then I can begin to realize what I did, and then I can return to Hashem. Because that's all these verses are talking about over here. You stop learning so much, you stop keeping the mitzvahs so much, you're straying from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, something must be going on over here. What could it be? What could it be? It's like years ago I heard from a sefer who writes mezuzahs and tefillin. He checks mezuzahs and tefillin. He said there was once a family that came to him, and the family said, "We're going through so much yisurim, so much suffering and pain and struggle. Check our mezuzahs. There must be something wrong with our mezuzahs." That's always the first place people go. Maybe there's a letter that's missing. Maybe there's one word in the letter is missing over that explains why we're going through so many difficulties. So the sofer takes all the mezuzahs. He checks them all. Baruch Hashem, all of them beautiful, perfect, kosher mezuzahs. So the husband and wife come back to pick up the mezuzah. They said, no, what did you find? He said, what did I find? You have beautiful mezuzahs. They're all good. He said, everyone is kosher. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. There's nothing wrong. Nothing wrong. Your mezuzahs are 100% kosher. So he said, the husband and wife were dejected. And as they're walking out of his house, the wife turns to the husband and she says, if it's not the mezuzahs, then what could it be? So the sofer said to himself, what could it be? The last I checked, there's 613 mitzvahs that we're supposed to keep. Mezuzah is only one. Maybe you'll need to examine the other 612 mitzvahs and see how you're doing in this one, and in that one, and in Midos, and in this, and Yerushalayim, and Simcha, maybe you have to examine that. And if you examine that, and you don't find anything that you did wrong, then you have a really good question on Hashem. Then it's just because He loves you so much, that's all. But most likely, if a person just digs a little deeper into their life, they'll find something, I'm not so careful in this one, or in that one, I could be better over here. And then we'll begin to understand why things are happening. So on one hand, we don't want to desist from the Torah, because that's painful for us, painful for Hashem. It's a downfall of a person. But if you hold on to your learning, you hold on to your emunah, we'll find grace in the eyes of Hashem. And even if HaKadosh Baruch Hu has no choice but to bring some kind of a punishment to a person, let us realize it's not the wrathful God that is punishing us. It's the God of chesed and rachamim, because He wants us to return. He wants us to get closer to Him. And He's doing it just to wake us up, to make us realize there are things that we must do to make ourselves better in the eyes of Hashem. Let's examine our ways, and in that zechus, in that merit, as a result of that, we'll come back to the pathways, like it said in the midrash that we quoted, Ki or shabai, the light of Torah and the light of mitzvahs, is machzir and lamutav. It will bring us back to the proper path, to the ways of Hashem. We should be zeichem, Yetz Hashem, to examine our ways, to be the Nasiv and Nishma Jews that we have to be, that Hashem, we're going to do, and we're going to keep learning to understand more. We'll realize that the Torah is behechrechis, it's necessity. We can't live without it. When the going gets tough, don't throw off the Torah. The tougher that the going gets, that's when you have to really cling to the Torah even more. And that's what Hashem was teaching us by Har Sinai. And in that merit, we'll merit the chesed and the rachamim of Hashem. Have a wonderful week, everyone.